Before seeing the slight whimper coming from the back seat, Officer Liam Coleman assumed it was just another traffic stop. His face went white when he noticed the puppy quivering inside of him. What could have caused such dread and desperation? Officer Liam Coleman patrolled the roadways of this small creature every day. Ridgefield is a peaceful town encircled by thick forests and rolling hills. Due to his commitment and keen intuition, Liam has witnessed a number of odd traffic stops. However, nothing could have prepared him for what he was going to experience on that brisk fall afternoon. A rusty blue vehicle drove past a stop sign with a sliver of suspicion. Liam stopped a few meters away from the damp surface, where his tires were slightly slipping. Ordinary traffic infractions, but this automobile had a certain vibe that made me reflexively grab for his lights and siren. Liam couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency as he parked the car, his palm resting gently on his. Years of training had taught him to holster as a precaution, and as he got closer to the driver's side window, he saw the driver's anxious hands gripped the wheel firmly, and he avoided making eye contact, maintaining a rigid and defensive stance. "Good afternoon." Liam started off with a stern yet businesslike tone. "Do you know why I prevented you from responding to the driver's low-pitched whimper?" Liam nearly missed it since it was so gentle, but it slid from the back seat and then returned in a desperate. Liam's eyes darted to the rear window as he heard a heartbreaking scream that made his pulse race. His breath caught his throat as he realized the abrupt urgency of what he witnessed. A tiny, weak puppy was curled up in the back seat, its fur filthy and matted, quivering wildly. Under its thin coat and its large, terrified eyes, the creature's ribs were evident, fixated onto Liam's, who silently begged for assistance. The officer's thoughts were racing. Why was? The driver's mind was racing with potential explanations for why the puppy was in such bad shape. "Every one of them is more frightening than the last," Sir Liam remarked, his voice harsher. "Now leave." Liam's fist tightened on his belt as the man paused outside the car. There was a serious problem with his circumstance, and Liam knew he was going to learn something shocking. As he stood by the side of the automobile, Liam's instincts took over. The driver was a wiry man in his. A person in their late 40s with disheveled hair and sunken eyes paused for an excessive amount of time. His motions were shaky before he eventually got out of the car, his eyes flitting between Liam and Liam said in a calm but firm voice, "Please move to the front of the car, sir," to a terrified puppy in the back seat. Signal for the man to put his hands on the hood, and the driver did so, although it was clear that he was reluctant. Rear seat Liam inquired in a measured tone. "It's just a dog," the man said. "I was going to bring it to the shelter." Liam's eyes, but his speech was hardly heard. Since things didn't make up, he approached the car and looked at the puppy through the rear window. Whined once more, pulling inward as though attempting to vanish, its fragile body trembling clearly, and the officer saw that his chest constricted and that his breathing was irregular and shallow. Animal abuse in the past. But there was something particularly tragic about this small creature's state. The dog had uneven fur that was covered in dirt and what seemed to be dry blood. Its flesh was cut by the improvised collar made of yarn that was placed around its neck. "You were taking it to the shelter," Liam said, turning back to the driver. "Yes, the man," he replied, his voice tinged with astonishment. "I discovered it on the side of the road," his words rushing out of him. I was at a loss for what to do. Liam arched an eyebrow, observing the man's mannerisms and how his story didn't fit his physique. Under Liam's observation, the man avoided making eye contact and shifted uneasily. "Do you have any documentation for?" Liam inquired about the dog's immunization records as evidence of adoption because he was already suspicious. The man shook his head in response, but I simply saw Liam's eyes. "If the dog is hardened, why is it in this state? If you were assisting it, why is it undernourished and hurting the man?" Liam could see the panic increasing as his lips opened and closed, but no words came out. Liam made a choice in his eyes at that very instant and grabbed his radio. "This is Officer Coleman from dispatch. I require backup and animal control in my area." When the driver's head snapped up, he muttered, "Wait, you don't understand. This could be a case of animal abuse and neglect." Liam explained everything to me in a severe tone, but it's not what it seems like. His tolerance was growing thin. "Since it appears that you have been mistreating this animal lately," the man muttered as his shoulders dropped. Before Liam could push him further, The man abruptly said something under his breath that Liam couldn't quite understand. Liam yelled as he dashed into a sprint in the direction of the adjacent wood stop. The driver was quick at first, but Liam had the advantage because through his preparation and perseverance. As he yelled for help once more, he quickly tackled the man to the ground and pinned him down. "Why did you flee?" Liam urged that he breathe in quick gasps, but the man ignored his face. By the time backup arrived, Liam had the man handcuffed and slammed into the dirt. Another cop started questioning Liam while he was sitting on the side of the road, but he quickly resumed his attention to the dog, opened the car door, reached inside, and spoke quietly to prevent a commotion. Liam spoke to the frightened animal. "It's okay. You're safe now." Squirmed initially, but did not fight as Liam gently raised it into his arms. The poor thing was lighter than he. Liam could see the little figure limping with tiredness up close. Extent of its wounds, including scrapes on its paws, bruises along its ribs, and a raw sore on. Liam hugged the puppy against its neck, shielding it from the tight rope that held his heart. Animal control showed up soon after, protecting it from the chilly weather with his chest as he walked it to his police car. The officer from Liam informed them to the issue, saying, "This little guy needs immediate medical attention." "I don't believe he has much time for animal control," a woman named Sarah grimly nodded. "We'll take him to the closest veterinarian." "Thank you for." Liam was relieved to take over for Officer Coleman as Sarah carefully put the puppy in a container. But, moreover, a persistent feeling of rage at the idea that someone could be so harsh to an innocent creature whilst the driver. When being questioned while being brought into arrest, he acknowledged that the dog had not been discovered by the side of the road, which had been a part of an illicit breeding operation in which he participated and which had been closed for months. However, when he sensed the cops were closing in, he retained the dog with the intention of selling it. Liam's fury boiled as he heard the confession and frantically attempted to destroy the evidence. But this wasn't merely a case of negligence. It was a component of a more serious and extensive problem. But now, the puppy received a chance at a new life as Liam because of Justice's tenacity and the prompt action of law enforcement. He felt a wave as he saw the animal control vehicle drive away down the street while transporting the vulnerable puppy. The safety of feelings overwhelmed him, including relief, rage, and a strong sense of purpose. But there wasn't time to think about it, because the driver's confession had led to something far more significant than a single case. Liam couldn't let it end because he knew he had discovered the remains of an illicit breeding enterprise after years of neglect. Liam examined the evidence collected from the single arrest back at the station. During the traffic stop, the man was carrying a little notepad with phone numbers and weird messages in it, and addresses, the majority of which were ordinary. But one entry drew Liam's attention. Drop-off location Warehouse Road. The note appeared to have been penned in a hurry as it was quickly scrolled. Liam presented his captain with a notepad, and he promptly approved additional research because this might be the clue. The captain stated in a serious tone that we must crack a bigger operation, but we'll. Liam acknowledged that he needed to handle things carefully, so he spent the following few hours arranging with animal and detectives. Control is assembling the bits of information about the driver, who is currently in custody. Ed, under pressure, grudgingly acknowledged that the warehouse listed in the diary had used as a meeting space. Point for breeding ring-related transactions when the business had been mostly shut down months prior. The next evening, Liam and a group of people he suspected were still active after several members had escaped capture. Officers got ready for a clandestine investigation into the warehouse they relocated. As they got closer to the structure in the shadow of darkness, their cars were covertly parked a street away. Light flickered through the gaps in the crumbling walls, and as they shifted, Liam's heart raced. As they got near, he gave the team the signal to disperse around the building so that nobody could escape the air. Tension filled. Every sound is amplified in the darkness on my. The team exploded through the doorway as Liam muttered the signal into his radio. 3, 2, 1. Inside the scene, a flashlight sliced through the darkness, revealing rows of cages that were both heartbreaking and infuriating. Lined the walls, each one containing pups and other animals in various levels of neglect. As elderly dogs growled weakly and spoke haltingly from tiredness, Liam saw them skulk in corners, their eyes wide with fear. His gut churned as he saw the clipboard. The smell of filth and sorrow was overpowering. Hanging on the wall with information about shipments and transactions that might be important in breaking down the. As the officers started releasing the animals from the remaining network, they heard footsteps overhead and realized that someone was still in. Liam and another police hurried up the stairs of the building, both of them brandishing their firearms. Liam's scream echoed as they discovered a man desperately attempting to flee via a broken window at the top. The man froze, his hands raised in submission, and turned through the empty gap. Liam's tone left no space for disagreement, so the man obeyed and got on the ground after moving carefully around. Animal was briefly handcuffed and escorted back downstairs to the main floor. Control crews had come to help with the rescue effort, and despite their fear, the animals were being gently enticed out. Liam saw one puppy in particular, a little one, as they emerged from their cages and entered waiting vehicles. The huge, beseeching eyes of the black and white ball of fur reminded him. Officer Coleman's heart was constricted when he recalled the puppy from the traffic stop. "We have a full house here, so thank you for calling us in." He phoned Sarah, the animal control officer he had previously worked with. Sarah grinned, and Liam nodded, asking how the dog from yesterday was doing. "He's doing better. The veterinarian indicated it will take some time for him to recuperate, but he's resilient." Liam feels a wave of relief, knowing that at least one life has already been saved. And when the team collected and secured the facility, hundreds more would now have a chance for a fresh start. Evidence. Liam couldn't help but consider how serious the circumstances were for those participating in this operation. Ignored the misery of these creatures and treated them like commodities. Served as a sobering reminder of both the negative aspects of human nature and the significance of defending those who. The rescued animals were taken to shelters and veterinary facilities since they were unable to defend themselves. Liam stayed behind to supervise the last phases of the procedure to make sure they got the treatment they so badly needed. That all of the evidence had been recorded and the entire warehouse had been examined by the time the operation was finished, and as dawn broke over Ridgefield, the first rays of sunlight lit up the peaceful streets. Liam sat in his police car, weary, in sharp contrast to the night's commotion, but, nevertheless, even though he was certain that this was just the start of a far more extensive probe, he permitted. In an act of self-appreciation, he imagined the dog he had saved the day before, safe and toasty in the care of the veteran crew that makes a little life shaky in the car's back seat, had saved the lives of innumerable others, serving as a reminder that even seemingly insignificant deeds can have a significant impact. Impact of change. Therefore, a week had gone by when Officer Liam Coleman had flung himself during the warehouse raid. The evidence gathered, ledgers, transaction records, and the investigation with renewed vigor. The extent of the illicit breeding was disturbingly depicted in the testimony of the man who was arrested at the scene. Operation. But the case didn't take a turn for the worse until he got a call from Sarah, the animal control officer. Liam didn't expect Sarah's voice was urgent as she said. Liam's heart skipped a beat during the traffic stop. "Is he okay? He needs to get down to the clinic." He said, "He's fine, but there's something you need to see," as he grabbed his keys and made his way to the door. "Describe your arrival." 15 minutes later, Liam entered the clinic and was welcomed by the sounds of barking and the disinfectant odor. Sarah greeted him in the lobby, her face solemn but with a. She led him down a hallway to a private examination room within the puppy cage, saying, "Follow me," with a sense of enthusiasm. The dog was resting in a padded kennel, cleaned up and appearing somewhat healthier, but it wasn't the puppy that caught. "What's going on?" Liam said, focusing on the folder Sarah was clutching. His forehead furrowed. Sarah handed him a set of photos after opening the folder and doing some tests on the puppy routine to look for any genetic indicators or underlying health conditions. And we discovered something. Atypical. Liam looked at the pictures, which featured close-ups of the puppy's coat, but under a particular kind of. Liam's stomach churned as faint lines that resembled a brand or tattoo emerged on its skin. His voice was low as he said, "What is this?" Sarah clarified that it was a marker and that we had seen it. Breeders have already used these markers to identify certain animals in cases involving upscale animal trafficking rings. It's similar to a signature for litters or bloodlines, but she lingered on this one, turning to a different image. This one corresponds to a ring that we have been looking at for years. They're known a breed. Liam's hold on the pictures tightened. So you're arguing that unique and unusual creatures frequently live in horrifying conditions. Sarah nodded precisely and acknowledged that the dog is linked to a wider network. Liam's mind raced as he comprehended the fact that he ended up in that car, which implies we're closer to that network than we've ever been. During the traffic encounter, the motorist stated that he was attempting to get rid of the dog because he feared being discovered. But it was now evident that the puppy was more than simply a neglected pet. It was a crucial piece of proof. We need to track this in a much larger and more sinister operation, Liam stated in a forceful tone. Matches their network, so there must be a method to identify the source. Sarah concurred, saying, I've already gotten in touch with a expert who collaborates with law enforcement on cases such as this. She is skilled in deciphering these indicators and tracing their origins. She will be here tomorrow. Liam went back to the clinic the next day to see the expert. Forensic veterinarian Dr. Elena Marquez has years of experience looking into. After reviewing the images, animal trafficking specialist Marquez validated Sarah's conclusions that this marker is distinct. Dr. Marquez clarified to a breeder we've been attempting to stop for years that they're headquartered abroad but run. The presence of this puppy indicates that a network of intermediates is functioning in. Liam's jaw tightened in this area. Do we have any clues as to where they might be working locally? Dr. Marquez paused. The identifiers provide us a place to start, but more proof is required to identify their present activities. Nevertheless, I can tell you this. More animals are probably being trafficked right now if this dog is a member of their network. As Liam pored over the information at his desk that evening, he came to the conclusion that he was troubled by the fact that the puppy he had saved was a part of a large-scale, unlawful operation, but also gave him a newfound feeling of purpose. This was about destroying a system that flourished on more than simply one species. Harshness and exploitation. And then he opened the file with the notes after having a sudden thought. And addresses discovered in the driver's notebook. One address in particular, marked simply as Site B, caught our attention. It had a note next to it that said, Last shipment, Liam's Pulse, and was circled in red ink. In order to save time, may this be another place where the trafficking animals are dropped off or possibly stored. I believe I discovered something when Liam called his commander. He mentioned that we should check. Liam and a small group of officers arrived at this address the following morning. It was a modest property outside of town, a big dilapidated barn encircled by overgrown grass, and the air was heavy with the distant barking sound, and the stench of decay sent shivers down Lee's spine. Liam told his men to remain vigilant as they got closer to the barn inside. The rows of cages lined the walls, some empty, and the scene was eerily reminiscent of the warehouse they had seized days earlier. Others kept animals in different conditions of misery, but this time there was something much more unsettling in a table in the middle of the barn was covered in papers, pictures, and what looked to be a ledger with sales information. In shipments, Liam's heart fell when he saw some of the addresses as his eyes skimmed the pages. Sites in several states that are all connected to the trafficking network. With a determined tone, Liam stated, This is the break weave. Liam and his colleagues were startled by the revelation of the barn and its unsettling contents, as the proof was painstakingly recorded, and the animals were saved. The truth of what they had discovered started to sink in. It was a complex network that extended well beyond Ridgefield, which the ledger discovered in the back of the station. Liam, the barn gave the first tangible indication of its extent. Reviewed the evidence with the captain and the senior detectives. The ledger was chock full of mysterious codes and symbols demonstrating that the person in charge of this operation was skilled at hiding their tracks, but some particularly noteworthy items included a date, references to shipping Alpha, Client 7, and time allotted is only 3 days away. So this might be our opportunity, Liam added. The ledger, we may be able to catch them in the act if we can determine the whereabouts of this shipment. The captain nodded. It's a good lead, but we must be cautious about who is trailing. This won't let their operation end without a struggle. And throughout the course of the following 48 hours, the crew worked non-stop too. Dr. Elena Marquez went back to decipher the ledger and solve the enigma. using her knowledge to compare the codes with established trafficking trends. A city's research showed that Cargo Alpha most likely referred to a pickup location close to the state line, a remote location sometimes utilized for private conversations. In the meanwhile, Sarah, the animal control officer, collaborated with Liam to make sure the barn's rescued animals were being cared for, including the puppy from the initial traffic stop. Despite his difficult beginnings, Chance, who was lovingly called such by the clinic staff, demonstrated exceptional perseverance, his light-hearted manner adding a ray of hope to an otherwise gloomy circumstances. Liam went to the clinic one evening, worn out but resolved. You began by crouching by Chance's box and allowing the puppy to kiss his hand. Liam replied softly, a tiny smile piercing his weariness. All of this, didn't you? Tensions were high as the scheduled cargo day drew near, so we're going to make sure they can't harm anyone else. The group coordinated with local and federal authorities to develop a strategy to thwart the operation at the drop-off location. Liam was at the heart of everything the authorities did to make sure they had the resources necessary for a successful operation. Determined, Liam gave his crew a briefing on the morning of the operation. "This is our last chance at this," he remarked in a steady yet stern voice. "These individuals have fallen between the cracks. Let's ensure that today's drop-off location was a desolate one for too long. Area of land close to an abandoned quarry that is encircled by thick woods." The team arrived several hours early, positioned themselves amid the trees for the takedown, and set up surveillance. Through binoculars, Liam saw the minutes as they passed, his excitement growing with each one. At last, a group of trucks emerged on the horizon, their headlights piercing the misty dawn. Liam alerted his staff that everyone was prepared to move, and the truck suddenly stopped close to a group of storage. Men started unloading cages and containers. Some were loaded with animals, while others, Liam said in his radio, "This is it, ominously empty," to everyone in. As the crew carried on with their job, a sleek black SUV drew up and waited for my signal. A well-dressed man emerged, approaching the employees with a composed and commanding manner and yelling commands. After looking through the cages, Liam had a gut feeling that this was a significant individual, maybe a anxiety peaked when Liam, a crucial player in the plot, ordered officers to move out of there, hiding places with pistols drawn and shouting orders for the suspects to stop. As some of the men attempted to escape, the scene descended into mayhem, but Liam and the perimeter teams swiftly captured them. Focused on the SUV's occupant, who stood motionless for a while before trying to get inside. "Stop!" Liam yelled, his voice piercing the chaos as the man paused. Then up his hands in surrender. And as the scene was secured and the suspect were taken into custody, Liam's crew started looking over the freight. The animals were alive despite being scared and undernourished. It was a tiny triumph in an otherwise gloomy operation when Liam noticed something among the cages that caught him off guard. A package with the same emblem as the one he had accidentally discovered inside contained a litter of. It was terrifying to see puppies with the same subtle skin marks. Reminder of the number of people who had perished in this web of cruelty back at the station in the wake of the. As the operation progressed, the suspects were questioned about their ties to the trafficking network, which led to the evidence from the barn and the drop-off site, along with the light from the ledger, offered a roadmap for. Liam's work involved destroying the organization piece by piece, but the rescued animals need care. The network's higher-ups were still out there, and the case needed to be followed up on. But for the first time, he felt a sense of momentum and the conviction that they may actually influence the drop-off point. Attacked behind them, Liam's crew had won a big battle, but it was obvious that this was just the beginning. Iceberg, the individuals held at the spot, had not said much when initially questioned about their allegiance to the operation. Seemed robust, but the data gathered, especially the ledger, indicated a far more extensive and deeper. One aspect of the perilous network that stayed with Liam from the raid was the litter of. Liam was happy that the puppies had been saved, but he couldn't get rid of the notion that they were marked with the same sign, because their presence suggested something darker. What if these creatures weren't merely the victims of unlawful breeding, but what if they were part of a bigger plan or an experiment? The following day, did Elena Marquez visit the station with fresh information regarding Liam's puppy markings. She started. These symbols aren't only arbitrary when multiple documents are spread out on the table. According to the papers Liam studied, they seem to be a component of a coded system that this network uses. What kind of system is it? Dr. Marquez indicated that this particular marker signifies ancestry. Certain breeds are frequently developed for elite purchasers in upscale animal trafficking rings. Although this, she first indicated a more complex sign, but this one is distinct. Liam's eyes enlarged, suggesting a genetic enhancement or change. Are you? Dr. Marquez nodded gravely when he said that these animals have been interfered with, indicating that genetic testing was probably done by accident. And the other puppies displayed minor abnormalities that were not detrimental to their health, but were sufficient to indicate they were being bred for extremely certain qualities, such as power, endurance, and intellect. The revelation revealed a new phase in the inquiry into whether someone was attempting to produce a superbreed. Because the trafficking network participated in genetic research, their activities went beyond simple reproduction, selling animals in order to create something completely new. This change increased the stakes, and Liam. The inquiry experienced its first significant obstacle despite the abundant evidence. But they realized they couldn't afford to lose momentum. Evidence that the suspects held at the drop-off location refused to participate, and it was irritating that they remained silent. However, it was evident that they feared the person responsible for the operation more than the law enforcement officer Liam's captain. Recommended concentrating on the evidence rather than trying to encourage people to speak. If that doesn't work, we'll let the evidence speak for itself. Stated that a forensic team was assigned to examine the confiscated objects, working diligently to unearth a list of encrypted contacts and shipments that suggested several sites throughout the. As Liam investigated the case more, he also discovered that he was struggling with the pictures of the rescued animals, together with the emotional toll of the work. He was troubled by their malnourishment and fear, but amid the shadows there were, by happenstance, the dog who had unintentionally set off this hole. Under the supervision of Sarah and Liam, a member of the clinic staff, the inquiry was flourishing. Frequently visited, the puppy's lively enthusiasm provided comfort during one visit. As you may imagine, Sarah experienced a heartwarming moment while scratching behind Chance's ears. It's incredible how one act of compassion can halt that, and this little man has come to represent hope for everyone here. Carr caused all of this, and Liam grinned as the burden temporarily lifted. "I'm a fighter," he said, and he reminds me why this is being done. The investigation took a surprising turn after Liam got a tip from A. According to the anonymous informant, there was a high-level meeting involving members of the 2 states away. A secluded warehouse will host a trafficking network. According to reports, the purpose of the meeting was to talk about their activities' future in light of the previous raids. But the tip was dangerous, unsubstantiated, and maybe a trap. Liam realized they couldn't ignore it after. After speaking with his captain, they made the cautious decision to send a small crew to monitor the meeting, and Liam and his group came at the warehouse the night of the operation to obtain intelligence under the guise of. From their vantage point, it was dark, the building was in disrepair, encircled by overgrown foliage, and strangely quiet. Through binoculars, they observed as vehicles started to arrive, each carrying people who emanated authority. Liam watched the gathering inside, where a large table was surrounded by a number of men and women in crisp suits. A man with a strong presence among them, talking about documents and maps, quickly drew Liam's attention. Presence that Liam knew from a picture of him that had been discovered in the barn during the first raid. Liam muttered. Entering his radio, the person from the ledger is in charge of this team's activity. Stayed undercover, recording everything they could, but as the meeting went on, things took a risky turn. As one of the traffickers went outside for a smoke, Liam and his group retained their gaze on the periphery. The man's gaze hovered close to their location while he breathed, hoping their cover wouldn't be blown, but after a tense time he shrugged and went back inside. The near miss served as a clear reminder of the dangers, but it also strengthened their resolve to hold these individuals accountable. As the meeting came to an end, the traffickers started to scatter Liam's Team took pictures of their license plates and cars, obtaining vital information to trace there. Returning to the station, the data was collated into an extensive report outlining laying the foundation for a more thorough investigation. The more Liam studied the case, the revelation of genetic experimentation and the blatant cruelty committed started to profoundly weigh on him. He was experiencing a flurry of emotions after seeing the animals. This wasn't simply about imposing the rules anymore. It was about morals, humanity, and his sense of duty to shield those who couldn't safeguard themselves. Late one night, Liam ended up back in the clinic. The dog had become noticeably stronger while sitting in the peaceful room where Chance slept, and his lively manner was striking. In contrast to his precarious condition during the first traffic stop, Liam reached into the crate and carefully. "You have no idea how much you've changed everything," he whispered softly, scratching behind Chance's ears. Sarah, who had been arranging supplies nearby, heard him and grinned, signaling that we are finally getting closer to the truth. She pulled up a chair next to Liam and said, "You know, I think Chance was meant to find you. Sometimes the smallest beings have the greatest influence." Liam laughed softly, but remained silent. Couldn't get rid of the remorse that lurked underneath his thankfulness for not stopping this network sooner for the already lost lives, as well as the burden of his newfound responsibility as the investigator. As the investigation developed, conflicts within the team started to arise because of the size of the case and the pressure to cause conflict amongst the officers. One day during the dismantling of the operation, "We're chasing ghosts," cried one investigator during a heated strategy discussion, pounding his fist against the table. "We have shards of evidence and no firm leads, so these individuals are most likely shifting their activities as we speak." Liam stayed composed yet unwavering in every aspect of, "Our last chance to halt is now, and if we back off, the evidence we have accumulated points to something bigger." And further officer then said, "What if this informant tip was a setup? The next time we risk our lives because we're making assumptions, we're falling into a trap." Silence as Liam looked around the team, saying, "I finally understand. This isn't simple, but consider the lives that those creatures are losing as a result of this operation if we don't take action." His remarks resonated, and even if the tension persisted, and the group came together in support of him, they couldn't afford to allow uncertainty or fear to cloud their judgment, especially since in the midst of the case's upheaval, Liam also had to deal with personal. His connection with his younger sister Maggie had been strained as a result of his late evenings and long hours, Maggie, who looked after their daughter Emma, had been kind, but her tolerance was. One evening, as she gave Emma to Liam Maggie, she said, "Emma misses you and you're barely home." Liam grumbled as he ran. "Really, I'm not the only one juggling everything." A hand through his hair. "I'm sorry, Maggie, but this case is more serious than I." Maggie interrupted, saying, "I understand that your job is taking over your life, but I'm trying to balance everything. It's significant, but it cannot take you away from yourself. Emma needs her father, not just a hero." As Liam put Emma to bed that night, her words struck him more forcefully than he had anticipated, and he couldn't help but feel conflicted. For the first time in weeks, he started to give his family the time and attention they needed, even if the case required a lot of him, to consider whether he was overcommitting himself, as the emotional toll also affected the animals. While progress was encouraging, many of the other rescued animals were still having difficulty recovering. One in particular, a dog named Luna, was discovered to be seriously underweight in a distressing case. Despite the team's best efforts, Luna remained aloof and damaged, losing her trust. During Liam's visits, Sarah, who is humanly broken, gave him updates via voice. With a hint of melancholy, Luna stated one evening that her case hurts my heart. Although she is physically recovering, I'm not sure whether she will ever fully recover emotionally. It seems like she has given up. Liam watched as Luna, she's been through hell, lying curled up in the corner of her crate with her eyes far away. He said softly, "But the fact that she is still present indicates that something is wrong." Sarah nodded. "It does, but I wish we had more time to continue our talk." With each victory, Liam felt both motivated and powerless because there were many visible and invisible scars that couldn't be reversed, serving as a reminder of how serious the situation was as the group got ready for. Liam struggled with the case's emotional burden, anxiety, guilt, and uncertainty as they made their next move. Were ever present, but so was the optimism that the animals they had saved would. His resolve to finish this one was strengthened by the lives they had saved. Sarah texted Liam one evening while he was alone in his office going over the case files. It was a picture of a chance once. The caption read, "Your little hero ready for action," and Liam grinned as he sat proudly with a tiny chew toy in his lips. Picture served as a much-needed reminder of why he was battling so valiantly. Dread and doubt may have been his burdens, but he wasn't alone. Both human and animal lives depended on him, and he would not disappoint them. And as Liam and his group proceeded with the inquiry, the stakes kept rising. Indeed, the informant's report regarding the network's top leadership had given a useful lead, but each step that, in actuality, the danger increased since the traffickers were not only cunning but also vicious in there. Late one evening, when Liam combed over the activities, he discovered that they went well beyond what he had first thought. Sitting in his office, a message from the forensic team buzzed on his phone, and it was a picture of sign that. Liam's stomach dropped as he discovered that it had been etched on the inside of a metal container discovered at the drop-off spot that identified it as the identical sign that was affixed to the message and branded on the ears of the rescued dogs. It was a note whose engraving corresponds to markings discovered 5 years ago during a raid on an exotic animal trafficking organization. After the suspects vanished, the case became cold, and Liam reclined in his chair under the weight of the finding, settling over him. This was about an organization, not merely genetic experimentation or luxury trafficking, with a track record of eluding justice, and it appeared they were back in business. Wider scale, Liam convened his colleagues the following morning to talk about the new information. This symbol links our situation to a failed operation in the past. As he started to project the footage onto the screen, the traffickers disappeared without leaving any trace, but they have since returned and are. One of the detectives, Maria, was more organized than ever. "Do we?" Liam grimly nodded. "Do you know how they've managed to stay under the radar for so long?" the elderly case said. "In order to evade detection, they employ a number of safe houses and relocate their activities frequently. They're also quite clandestine. Only a select few at the top are aware of their network's entire extent." Jake, another detective, raised the issue if we're. Liam's jaw tensed as he said, "How do we know that the same group won't simply vanish again? While we must move quickly to strike them where they are hurting, while Sarah is back in the clinic." While doing one of her regular checkups on the rescued puppies, Chance, who had been doing well he appeared anxious in recent weeks, pacing back and forth in his enclosure and complaining. Sarah whispered, "What's wrong, buddy?" while crouching next to him and looking out the window. Calm him down, but Chance stayed agitated, his ears perked up and his eyes focused on. Later that night, while Sarah was shutting up, she thought she saw a shadow traverse the parking lot outside. Her heart pounded as she swiftly looked around, but it was empty, and she brushed the discomfort aside as her imagination. But when she discovered a folded piece of paper hidden behind her car's windshield wiper, the letter was brief and chilly, "Keep away from it." The threat caused a wave of anxiety too. Sarah was aware that she couldn't abandon the creatures under her care, and she wasn't going to allow some. She was intimidated into silence by the faceless CRI cryo, so she phoned Liam right away, who, arriving at the clinic in a matter of minutes. Liam looked over the note with a gloomy expression, as if they were attempting to frighten us away. Replied, "This indicates that we're getting close." Sarah paused, wondering if they were observing the clinic or if the animals weren't. Liam put a comforting hand on her shoulder and said, "Safe here. We'll increase security. Officers will be posted outside all day and night, but we cannot allow them to win Sarah over. These animals serve as proof." And as the crew stepped up their efforts, they discovered another crucial piece of the jigsaw, and they were banking on us. The ledger's forensic investigation showed coded entries that, when decoded, indicated that a shipment was noted that was expected to arrive at a private airport in a nearby state. Liam and his commander swiftly devised a plan to operate behind a shell firm connected to the previous trafficking case. Intercept the shipment. It would be a risky operation that needed careful planning and timing, but they did their best. opportunity to deal the network a serious hit on the night of the operation. The squad reached the airstrip. The area was carefully secured by security personnel under the cover of darkness. With the perimeter being patrolled and the tarmac being illuminated by powerful floodlights, Liam's heart was racing as he and his crew. As the plane landed and taxied to a stop, a convoy of people took their places, waiting for the signal to move in. As unmarked trucks arrived at the tarmac, Liam saw through binoculars as many guys started unloading big. The plane's boxes, each bearing the identical sign they had previously seen, stood by Liam and whispered into his. He tightens his hold on the radio as he waits for me to signal the team, held their breath until the crates were placed onto the trucks, and Liam issued the command just as the final crate was fastened. Go, go. Officers swarmed as the following few minutes were a blur of mayhem. As the traffickers scrambled to flee, the airstrip shouted instructions, and some suspects were caught, while others successfully escaped into the night. And when the dust settled, Liam's focus shifted to more puppies, some frail and undernourished, were discovered in the boxes within. Rest were barking in terror, but Liam's attention was drawn to a different box that was bigger than the rest and hadn't. He had never seen the animal before. Its eyes and fur had a peculiar hue of silver. Loai's breath seized in his throat. "What is this?" he said, bright and intelligent. The strange animal that was found at the flight strip was taken right away to the clinic, where Sarah. Whilst her group awaited its arrival, Liam, who was still digesting the night's events, trailed closely behind his rushing thoughts. The silver-coated creature, which was penetrating, didn't look like any species he had ever seen. After the animal was securely restrained in a remote enclosure, Sarah's gaze appeared to possess an odd intelligence. "I've never seen anything like this," she stated in her voice as she started her examination. "Its physical attributes are distinct, even unearthly, and evoke a mixture of wonder and worry." Liam stayed close by and watched, thinking, this can't be a naturally occurring species. Do you believe it's another consequence of their research? Sarah might have responded by closely examining the animal's vital signs, but I'd need to conduct tests to confirm the animal's identity, despite its unnerving appearance. Stayed composed and watched its surroundings with a level of knowledge that was almost human. Its actions just made the riddle more complex, leaving Sarah and Liam with more questions than answers while the culprits are being held at the police station. Maria, one of the primary detectives, concentrated on the people being questioned at the flight strip. Maria was frustrated by the man's silence, who seemed to be in command of the operation, but she persisted utilizing. She firmly placed pictures of the crates and said, "We know what you're doing, and we have every tool in our arsenal to break him. We are aware of the experiments and the rescued animals on the table before him. So this is more than just human trafficking." The man sneered in defiance, showing that you don't know half the truth. "It's much worse than that. You think we'll let you get away with it," he said in a mysterious manner. "You couldn't stop it even if you did." Maria was growing frustrated, but she didn't show it. "Perhaps not yet, but," she answered coolly, "and we're getting closer. And you'll regret not complying when we do." The man's face wavered briefly, showing a flash of. Maria saw the uneasiness on his face and leaned close, saying, "You're not as untouchable as you believe we've already." She seemed to strike a chord when she said, "How many more are you willing to lose before your bosses turn on you?" Nerve. But the man soon recovered his cool and remarked, "You'll never find them." Reclining on his chair, Sarah's tests on the silver-coated surface at the clinic are always one step ahead. "Liam, you must see these startling results that the animal showed," she said. Genetic data scrolled past the screen for him to join her at the lab. Pointing out irregularities that Sarah had never seen previously, she clarified that this animal's DNA had been altered. However, this creature is completely unique and not just a hybrid. It was probably created in a lab. Liam's jaw tightened as he realized that whoever did it was well aware that it wasn't simply about making money. Power control is the focus now, so if they can produce anything similar, what? Sarah nodded, her face gloomy, but why? What else are they capable of? In the end, is this about something more significant and unsolved, or are they attempting to develop a market for unusual pets? As the days went by, the lingering uncertainties heightened the significance of their discovery. Between Liam and Sarah strengthened their mutual regard for one another's abilities and their joint commitment to the case. Forge a solid alliance late one evening while going over their results. "This is the hardest case I've ever worked on," Liam said, revealing the toll the case was taking on him. "The stakes seem to be rising with each new revelation, and I can't help but question whether we're doing." Sarah put a comforting hand on his arm and said, "Enough. You're doing everything you can. Remember that these creatures have a chance because of you, Liam." Her remarks gave him a fresh sense of direction and reminded him of the original reason he had chosen to fight this battle. Chance, the rescued puppy, was still doing well at the clinic in the meantime. He had won everyone over with his lively demeanor and steadfast devotion. But it was his bond with the silver-coated. When the animal that startled them the most happened to be close to its cage, his behavior shifted and he became. Sarah watched their interactions with a calm, even protective demeanor, as though he recognized the animal as a kindred spirit. She said, "I don't know how, but it's like they share a bond with fascination." Liam eyed the dog with wonder and pride, as if Chance sensed something about the creature. He smiled slightly and added, "Perhaps he knows more than we do. He's been a hero from the beginning." Liam's team discovered another crucial discovery as the investigation went on. A secret facility connected to. The facility was said to be close to the trafficking network, which was situated in a secluded region. Be where the animals were kept prior to transit footage showing a steady stream of extremely armed guards. This is the number of unmarked vehicles that attest to its significance to the operation. During a briefing, Liam stated that this is where the animals are being kept and perhaps where they're carrying out their experiments. The team was ready for what would happen if we could take down this location and destroy their entire network. Unquestionably their riskiest mission, but the opportunity to rescue lives was worth the risks. The strategy to attack the covert facility was worth it in order to save innumerable animals and bring the traffickers to justice. Finished, Liam and his group put up a lot of effort to map out every aspect because they knew they only had one shot to. Functioning successfully, the facility served as the hub of the trafficking and wasn't merely a place to keep animals. Operation and the secret to revealing their criminal network's entire extent. The squad, wearing tactical gear, walked through the dark woodland in silence on the stressful night of the operation. Drones buzzed as Liam led the group around the facility, his focus steadfast as they got closer to their target. Maria's voice crackled over the live surveillance of the property, which was manned by armed guards. "We've located several access ways through Liam's ear, but the guards are well armed." Liam responded, "You have to move quickly and surprise them." Turned to his crew and reminded them that the animal's safety is our top responsibility. The squad divided into two groups, one of which went to the main building while the other did not engage unless absolutely required. When Liam's squad arrived at the main door, others positioned themselves to cover any possible escape routes. As they arrived at the location, they both cut through the thick steel lock and turned off the surveillance cameras. The walls were adorned with rows of cages, each containing animals that were scared and undernourished. Some were uncommon species, while others were the animals who defied natural explanation as a result of genetic experiments. The animal with the silver coat from the airfield was no longer an exception. Dozens of similar hybrids were imprisoned inside the. Liam's chest constricted as he looked around the room. "We need to get them out of here," he murmured resolutely. As the group started to open the cages, a loud alarm abruptly went off, breaking the stillness the guards had found. As the breach returned to defensive positions, Liam gave the command to draw his weapon, and the group promptly established a perimeter surrounding the animals in anticipation of the impending conflict, and shooting broke out outside as Liam's heart pounded as he radioed Maria to the second squad of guards. "What's the situation?" "They're calling for reinforcements, but we have them held down." She said, "You need to." Hurrying into the institution, the animals' precarious situation worsened. The silver-coated animals thrashed against their cages, their cries resonating across the air as the fearful started to panic. Jake, one of Liam's cops, came up to him and said, "We have to get the animals out of the building because we can't keep them off forever." Sarah, who had accompanied the raid to offer medical assistance, now put in a lot of effort to soothe the creature. The puppy sensed the anxiety and remained focused on Chance, who had been brought along to bolster team spirit. "It's okay, Chance," Sarah said, caressing his fur as his eyes darted tensely about the room. "Weck managed this." But as the guards outside drew closer, Liam understood they. He looked at Jake and stated, "We need a diversion because we're running out of time. We may be able to evacuate the animals if we can get them to leave the facility." Jake agreed. "I'll take a few men and divert your attention so that you can concentrate on rescuing the animals as Jake." Liam turned to Sarah once his crew had gone to carry out the plan. "Can you handle the transport?" "We need to move quickly," Sarah nodded, demonstrating her resolve. "I've got this working together." They started, placing the most fragile animals first before loading them into shipping containers, as though realizing gently reminding them of the seriousness of the situation. The distraction worked, removing the majority of the guards from the building. But as Liam and Sarah's assignment came to a close, a group of armed men rushed into the room, brandishing their weapons, and one of the guards snarled. The squad froze, their hands slowly rising into the air as his finger touched the trigger. As Liam's thoughts raced, looking for a way out, the guards suddenly advanced, their faces icy and uncompromising. Chance escaped Sarah's hold and ran toward the guards, barking wildly when the guys paused there. Briefly distracted by the tiny but courageous puppy, Liam sprang forward to take advantage of the situation. The room erupted in pandemonium as the squad struggled to recover control after Sarah quickly disarmed one of the guards, protected the creatures, her pulse racing as the battle raged all around her. In the middle of the battle, the silver-covered beast that appeared from the shadows with its prison unfastened. Unexpected agility, its gaze suddenly fixed on the guards, and it released a... The guards were shocked by the creature's low, guttural snarl as it lunged at one of the guys, knocking him to the ground. When the sudden hostility subsided, Liam's team gained the upper hand inside. Liam's breathing became labored as the guards were subdued and their guns seized. He looked at Sarah and asked, "Are you?" She nodded, her face pallid, but she was determined to make this the final one. Liam radioed Maria to let her know that the animals had been placed into the transport vehicles. "We will meet at the rendezvous point." As dawn dawned over the horizon, the team swiftly left the facility behind, and the air was heavy with the cargo vehicles drove through the early morning under the weight of what they had done and what was still to come. Liam, seated in the passenger seat of the lead truck, kept a close eye on Hayes as she carried the rescued animals to safety. His mind was racing with both relief and worry as he kept his focus on the road ahead, had succeeded in removing the animals. But the trafficking network's reach was extensive and he was aware that reprisals could occur, but Maria's unit was still addressing the raid's aftermath. Arrests had been made, and the facility's ID evidence was being. Among the records was a ledger with names and coded entries that might hold the secret to revealing. Maria called Liam right away, and the whole network said, "Oh, we found something." Her voice was frantic as she stated, "A ledger containing identities and transactions may reveal the entire operation," which is fantastic news, Liam said, clutching the phone. "Keep it safe, Maria. As soon as we get back together, we'll need to interpret it." Hesitated because they were aware of the transport, and we had intercepted a signal during the attack. "May attempt to stop you." Liam's stomach constricted, but he knew we would stay. Sarah was aware of the tension in the car and alerted the convoy, riding in the back as the animals were examined to make sure they were stable following the ordeal. His body was stiff and his ears were perked up, as though he could sense the danger that the silver-coated monster, now known as Sarah's Luna, slept peacefully in its cage, its keen eyes sweeping the. Luna's serene manner was unnerving. It seemed as though the animal recognized the seriousness of the circumstance, superior to all others as the convoy neared a slender mountain past Liam's. The road was briefly blocked by a black SUV, confirming the worst concerns. Later, further vehicles came up behind them, blocking their escape. Armed men then emerged, their faces hidden by "Keep your cool" masks. Liam said into his radio, "Everyone, stay in the cars for protection." The masked man in the lead stepped out of the vehicles, lifted a megaphone, shouted. Liam looked tensely at the driver and said, "They're not taking these. Hand over the goods so that no one gets wounded." "Maria, we need backup," he replied firmly as he reached for his radio once more. Maria said, Hold your position. The standoff is about to begin. Escalated as the armed men moved closer to the cars Liam knew they couldn't afford to wait for. Reinforcements. He got out of the truck, held up his hands to demonstrate that he was unarmed, and spoke to the men directly. He added in a firm voice, "These animals are under our protection. Despite the danger, turn around and leave, or you'll regret it." The group leader chuckled icily. "Do you really think you can stop us from giving them to them? Or will you accept them by force?" Luna let out a harsh roar that reverberated through the atmosphere before Liam could react. Stood between Liam and the armed men after escaping its confinement, its silver fur gleaming in the presence of the thing was both enthralling and horrifying, and the men faltered, uncertain of what it was. Luna let out a sound when one of the men murmured, his grasp on his weapon wavering. With their teeth clenched in a fierce growl, the armed men exchanged nervous glances. Looks at them, their confidence rapidly ebbing away as Liam senses their fear. Grabbed the opportunity to say, "This isn't just about the animals," his voice rising. "You may still be able to repair the harm if you leave now, but you're a part of something far greater than you understand." The leader hesitated, his confidence shattered, but before he could react, police sirens sounded, pierced the air, and as officers poured with firearms, Maria and her squad came in their cars, rushing to a stop. As soon as the traffickers realized they were outnumbered, some of them dropped their weapons and gave up, while others, Liam ran into the forest, and the police caught those who were still there to secure the area and remove the barricade. Released a breath he was unaware he was holding and turned to face Luna, who was frozen in place, staring at the "Are you saving us, fleeing men?" he said, his voice full of appreciation. Maria joined Liam in the lead truck, the ledger from the raid, as the road cleared and the convoy continued its journey. She showed him the coded entries and remarked, "Hands, this is the break we needed." Liam nodded, refocusing his attention on the road. "We've gone this far. We'll see. It will take time, but we'll get it done." The animals were unloaded and sent to their new homes as soon as the convoy reached the wildlife refuge. Enclosure Sarah and her group put up a lot of effort to make sure everyone was safe and comfortable, but Luna refused to abandon Liam, and the sanctuary's devotion to him is now indisputable. As the team saw the animals exploring their new surroundings, Sarah and Liam had a silent moment of contemplation. Thus, although the fight against the trafficking network was far from over the sanctuary, it was a hard-won victory. Despite the relative safety, personnel put forth a lot of effort to get the rescued animals settled into their new cages. There was still a lot of unresolved tension in their new surroundings. Sarah and Liam Maria assembled in the control room of the sanctuary, where a big screen showed real-time video of the silver-coated creature Luna paced as the animals explored their surroundings. Intelligent eyes that monitor its surroundings with an almost human-like ability around the perimeter of its enclosure. Curious, Chance sat outside the cage, waving his tail as though he was attempting to. Maria placed the confiscated ledger on the table and spread out the pages of this book to console Luna from a distance. Includes, she claimed, years' worth of transactions, names, places, and payment data. Liam peered over the pages, his brow wrinkled. "Everything we need to demolish this enterprise. Can't we track the—" Maria nodded. "If we track the money trail, we might discover the ringleader. That's the strategy, but it will take time because the codes are complex and forensic accounting assistance will be required." Sarah, an accountant sitting close by, glanced up from her notes and asked, "What about the animals? What if Luna, in particular, is more complex than we think?" Dr. Reeves, the head veterinarian from Sanctuary, came in with a clipboard, which I've just completed Luna's initial testing. He declared that her DNA reveals important. Her physical characteristics, resilience, and even behavior seem to have been designed due to her genetic abnormalities. Liam narrowed his eyes again. "Are you implying that someone made her, Dr.?" Reeves nodded gravely, which is how I came to the conclusion that Luna is a purposeful experiment rather than merely a natural phenomenon. The realization chilled the room, and Liam's jaw tensed. If there's trafficking, when a network engages in genetic engineering, the stakes are far greater than we initially believed. New information, One of the perimeter cameras on the sanctuary security system detected movement, triggering an alarm. Under the cover of darkness, the screen flickered to reveal a group of unknown persons approaching the refuge. Maria's eyes widened as Liam went into action, declaring that they were here to reclaim what we had saved. Directives to the sanctuary employees to shut down the enclosures and secure the animals. Maria, get in touch with the local authorities. We cannot permit them to approach Luna or the others. The refuge has been converted into entering a stronghold as employees secured gates and strengthened fortifications. Liam and Sarah remained with the animals while Maria prepared to protect the sanctuary with tranquilizer weapons if needed. Luna sensed the danger, but her presence calmed them despite the growing stress. Started to become restless, her pacing became more frenzied, and her keen eyes started to dart. Chance, ever loyal, stood near the perimeter where the intruders were coming. The intruders broke through the outer gate with their goals, his tiny figure brimming with resolve by her side. It was evident that Liam and Maria stopped them with their tranquilizer pistols as they hurried near Luna's enclosure. Liam said in a forceful voice, "Ray, stop right there. This is a protected. You're intruding on private land. Sanctuary." The group's leader, a towering, icy guy, strode forward. With a tone full of conceit, he replied, "We're here for what's ours. Step aside and no one gets hurt." Liam said, "You're not," his hands tightening on his rifle. "These animals are under our protection now. Transporting them anywhere." The confrontation intensified as the intruders moved forward, disregarding Liam's cautions, just as the Luna let out a ferocious, guttural roar that reverberated throughout the sanctuary as the tension approached its breaking point. Luna's display of power served as a warning and a statement of defiance. When the intruders' confidence wavered, one of them said, "What kind of?" The beast is that when Liam shot the commander with a tranquilizer dart, hitting him in the shoulder, the man stumbled but stayed upright, his face contorting into a scowl. Police sirens filled the air as Maria called for assistance, and he regretted that he hissed before he could respond. Had been addressed, and law enforcement personnel surrounded the intruders and severed off. The altercation quickly came to an end as the intruders were caught and taken away in. Liam, Maria, and the sanctuary crew watched in handcuffs as the menace was eliminated, and they all exhaled in relief. The silver-coated creature had soothed Luna's perceptive eyes as it swept across the group back at her enclosure. As the drama developed, Liam walked up to the fence and knelt down to look into her eyes. "You came to our rescue once more." Luna replied softly, "Thank you," and she cocked her head, her eyes showing a level of comprehension that gave Liam a chill by joyfully barking and waving his tail as the cops escorted the intruders away. Maria repeated Liam's appreciation. "We have everything we need to take down this network," she remarked as she approached Liam. Liam nodded his resolution while holding up the ledger, saying, "This is just the beginning. They misjudged us, but we're not going to let up until this entire operation is disassembled the refuge and started to unwind after the initial threat had passed. We accomplished it," Sarah exclaimed as she approached Liam and Maria, her face beaming with a sincere but exhausted smile. Liam looked at Luna and said, "Others are safe for now, but this fight isn't." After the turbulent night, a sense of tranquility returned to the sanctuary as the first rays of light appeared. While the rescued animals started to adjust to their new surroundings, personnel worked to fix minor damage caused during the intrusion. Different setting, yet the mood in the control room was still charged with. Liam, Maria, and Sarah gathered over the ledger to decipher each entry included frightening details about the individuals and transactions that led to the extensive web of the trafficking network. Unusual creatures trafficked internationally, covert facilities tucked away in isolated areas, in the name of influential those involved in the operation. While Luna continued to be the focal point of attention, the silver coat creature appeared to sense that it was now completely up and active. She strolled elegantly inside her enclosure, her keen eyes taking in everything around her, knowing that the worst was over. Chance remained by her, wagging his tail as though to let her know she was okay. Liam left the control room and went to the cage, stopping to see how Luna was doing. She pushed her head against the screen, her piercing eyes locking onto his. Fence a show of confidence that briefly silenced Liam. "You're amazing," he replied softly. "We're going to make sure no one touches her head through the bars." As you recall, back in the control room, Maria's phone rang with a message. "Never hurt you again. The ringleader has been recognized by the authorities," and she made her tone known. This is a high-ranking figure in a neighboring country, and it's triumphant and serious. Then we believed Liam had come back just in time to hear the news. He urged us to cooperate with. Maria responded, "International agencies should take him down, but we must move quickly if, when he learns of this, he will vanish while the group devises their strategy." Dr. Reeves arrived with fresh information on Luna after her DNA analysis was finished. He started off by saying, "She's not just a rare species. Luna's DNA has characteristics from several predator species, but she also has indications of intentional genetic engineering." The revelation struck the squad like a lightning, and whomever made her was trying something new. Luna wasn't just a routine rescue. She was proof of unlawful testing with possibly worldwide ramifications. As the group digested this revelation, chaos broke out. You must witness one of the sanctuary staff members rush in breathless from outside. A group of reporters and photographers had collected at the observation deck, so Liam and Maria rushed there. The world was now watching the sanctuary gates, and we couldn't hide when the news of the raid and Luna's finding spread. Maria stated that we must take control of the narrative because Liam understood how important transparency was. The sanctuary personnel promptly set up a shift podium and a press conference. Within an hour, reporters from all around the area were seated and eager to hear the tale when Liam bravely spoke up. Evident, but his determination remained unwavering. "And last night, we encountered a direct danger to the protection of our refuge and the animals we have vowed to safeguard. But because of the team's bravery and..." He pointed to Luna's cage, where the silver was kept, and said, "The amazing bond we formed with these creatures, we overcame it." Luna, a well-coated animal, stood erect and exuded respect. Moreover, she is living evidence of the extent some people will go to, not just a representation of the cause we are fighting for. Maria then entered the platform and held out the ledger, a booklet that lists the names of those who exploit and damage the natural environment. The activities of a global trafficking network, which we are collaborating with law enforcement to eliminate and bring people in charge of justice. But we need your assistance, your opinions, and your backing too. Make sure that these crimes are never committed again. The audience cheered their first. The news conference changed the public perception from one of skepticism to one of adoration and resolve. Gathering support for the sanctuary and its mission, Luna let out a low, melodious roar as the journalists scattered. Sounded almost like a purr, indicating that she also realized that things had changed for the better. Sarah and Leah Maria met by Luna's enclosure that night in her favor. As he observed his human and animal companions, Chance sat at their feet, wagging his tail. Sarah said something amazing with emotion in her voice, but Liam nodded. There's still a lot of work to be done. As the stars filled the night sky, Liam stood there thinking, this is just the beginning. Luna's story is a wake-up call for all of us. Luna came to the gate with her silver fur, alone in her enclosure, thinking back on the voyage that had led them here. Liam reached out, shimmering in the moonlight, and Luna softly touched him for the first time, placed her nose to his hand, and the two creatures exchanged a relationship that went beyond words, a shared comprehension of resiliency, trust, and, as the days stretched into weeks, the sanctuary evolved into a battle for a better world. Sign of resiliency and hope, the press conference attracted international notice, attracting volunteers, money, and even high-profile advocates for the topic Luna's narrative and the trafficking disclosures. The network turned become a global rallying cry for wildlife conservation initiatives. Sarah and Leah Maria committed themselves to making the refuge a haven for more than only rescued people. Animals, as well as for community organizations, schools, and activism, came frequently to get knowledge about the significance of preventing illicit wildlife and preserving endangered species. Luna became the spokesperson for the sanctuary's goal thanks to her amazing tail and majestic demeanor. One day, while watching Luna from the observation deck, Sarah said, "People in ways we never imagined." Her narrative isn't simply about surviving. It's about the connections we may make with nature. Luna is now completely settled in her new environment, flourished under the sanctuary staff's care, displaying traits that never ceased to astound the team. Intelligence, her capacity for nonverbal communication, and her innate tendency to defend others. Animals in particular, the connection between the silver-coated animal and the little dog had developed into a remarkable interspecies icon. Chance frequently led guests to Luna's enclosure while he was wagging his tail in a bond that won hearts everywhere. The sight of the two together never failed to make others grin, as if he were proudly introducing them to his best buddy, and sorrow to those who saw it, indicating that the battle against the trafficking network gathered steam in the interim. Ledger Maria's recovery was crucial in locating important individuals and the actions that were carried out by the government. Coordinated operations in several nations, saving a great number of animals, and tearing down the illegal trades infrastructure. Liam and Maria were asked to speak at international conferences on wildlife conservation, discussing their experiences and advocating for more robust protection. Fragile species. They utilized the opportunity to highlight the significance of grassroots initiatives and how we learned from Luna's narrative that both individuals and small groups might have an impact. According to Liam's keynote address, there's hope even in the darkest circumstances, and that hope begins with, "We all decided to defend, fight, and take care of the sanctuary life." Liam, who had always been motivated by duty, found a greater meaning in his profession after settling into a satisfying rhythm. Maria, whose keen intellect and unwavering perseverance had solved the trafficking case, became a sought-after consultant for organizations that protect animals. Sarah, whose soft touch and empathy helped to close the gap between people and animals, and each little triumph at the shelter brought happiness. Liam stood beside Luna's enclosure on an autumn morning, considering how far they had come. As Luna walked toward him, her silver fur gleaming in the sunlight, she exclaimed. Liam had learned to recognize her low, soft growl as a means of communication. "Satisfaction, you've transformed everything," he murmured, his voice full of appreciation rather than. "You are a miracle, Luna. The sanctuary, not only for us but for countless others, kept expanding as a result of the assistance it had received. Larger cages were constructed, enabling them to rescue and rehabilitate even more animals. The facility also developed into a center for specialist scientific research, investigating Luna's distinct genetic characteristics to learn more about safeguarding other rare and endangered. The enigmatic origins of the species Luna continued to fascinate people until Dr. Vargas and Reeves carried out additional research and concluded that the genetic experiments that had been conducted served as a reminder of humanity's obligation to protect the natural world. Luna herself was a testament to the harsh warnings about the repercussions of messing with nature that she had created. The tenacity and splendor of life one night as the sun set, bathing the sanctuary in a loving. Sarah, Leah, Maria, and Golden Light gathered around Luna's enclosure and sat, waving his tail at their feet while observing his animal and human companions. "This isn't just a sanctuary," Maria added in an impassioned voice. Liam gave Luna a second chance, saying, "She's taught us so much. I believe we've learned a lot about bravery, trust, and the strength of connection." As the stars emerged in the night sky, Liam turned to face Maria and Sarah, who had received just as much from her as she had from us. Maria always smiled. "You've come a long way, but there's still so much to do. Are you ready for the next chapter?" Sarah added, "The refuge served as a beacon of hope, and I believe that with Lunar and Chance at our sides, we can overcome anything." Unquestionable Lunar and Chance emblems of resiliency and the mission's influence. This camaraderie persisted in motivating everyone who came to their tale, which was born from a monument to the depth of the human-animal bond and the strength of collective action, suffering, and danger. When as Sarah and Liam Maria left Luna's cage, the silver-covered beast gave them a gentle, musical growl as though to bid them farewell, and observe them with an almost knowing stare. "Good night," Chance responded with a yelp and a wildly wagging tail. Together, they had faced the unimaginable and emerged stronger. Their journey was not yet over, but they were prepared, bound together by a common goal. If Luna's story had touched you as much as it did us, what would you have done to preserve the unbreakable relationships they had created along the way? Done if confronted with such a remarkable species and circumstance? Leave your ideas in the space provided below, and don't. Remember to like, subscribe, and tell others about this tale so that we can create a difference in safeguarding the amazing wildlife of our planet. Thank you for seeing, and we'll see you in the next narrative.